So welcome to the Spaceless Realms Podcast. And in this episode, we'll be talking about how love is the root of all evolution. Because if you were to analyze the word love, it is evol backwards, and that is the root of evolution. So that shows the power of love and how love brought us into this world and how we're in this plane of existence now. So yeah, I'm here with Kalki, and welcome, brother.
It's always an absolute pleasure. Um, this is beautiful to think of because to me, love manifests in so many different ways in our lives, but most people who talk about love really just focus on relationships. Very little, new age books or new spiritual traditions talk about the multifaceted ways, other than Eastern philosophies. And even then, there's a lot of restrictions. Usually, many religious and spiritual traditions talk about restraining love and restricting intimate relationships to reproduction. But at the end of the day, reproduction without love wouldn't even be animalistic, because even animals have love for each other, and especially they do have love for each other. So it's very interesting to ponder the multifaceted or the polymorphic aspects of love. And what I think is one of the most fascinating aspects of love is it's contained within evolution, it's contained within revolution. But love to me is also a form of time travel because it distorts. Anybody who's been in love can tell you it distorts time perceptions. It's also pathokinetic, it's extrasensory. So it's love. Nobody would deny that the heart chakra exists. If you believe in the chakric system, there's a heart chakra. It's an energetic point for that. It's almost like the soul of the heart. And it is in a sense, the soul of the heart. It's balanced in between the soul, but you have both sides. You have the psychic heart, which is like Krishna Nahata, and you have the physical heart, which is the Radha Nahata. So you have the red heart and you have the spiritual heart, the Ba and the Ka, like in ancient traditions. You've got these different aspects of the higher self, the lower self, the different manifestations of the hearts. They're the same way that you would have, for example, in Japanese, you have two different terms to say I love you. Yeah, there are many more than two, but two main ones that are koshitara and aishitara. Koi represents romantic love, ai represents friendly love, or could be familial love. So very interesting, very fascinating subject. And I think we forget that love should manifest in all levels of our existence. It should manifest in our food, should manifest in our clothes, in the fact that, say, in Shinto traditions, all sentient beings are imbued with energy, but also non-sentient beings are imbued with energy, which again goes back to marmas, to chakras, to nadis, to different energy points, energetic points that make up nature that we then restructure into what we consider to be objects. But then that falls into the negative side of bad relationships, objectification, stereotypification, commodification. Then you can dig into that in so many different ways. So like I said, fascinating subject.
So I wanted to ask you, what would a being do if they felt lost or empty within themselves and either like one of their chakras is blocked from the energy like flowing upwards, whether that's like the heart chakra or any of the other chakras throughout the spinal cord? How would somebody be able to fill that void within their heart?
Well, it's very important because you can't just fill a void. Generally speaking, if you think about what's on the other side of a void, if you're feeding a void that doesn't have a creative outlet, that's like feeding an empty chakra that's malfunctioning. It's like watering a dead plant, if you want to put it that way. It's not going to keep growing. But if you can know how to break off, say, a part of the plant and reroute it through water. So essentially, the creative outlet is what's on the opposite side of the chakra. Every point of energy, even our toroidal force field in the body, feeds off of negative and positive energy and neutronic energy in the middle. So, in order to get something, the creative outlet is what's missing usually in the replenishment of a broken chakra. There's a lack of creativity somewhere in the life, and I would say it can be definitely due to lack of love. But if it's codependent love or it's a relationship that's hurt you and you're in the midst of breakup, I've lived that. I've been through that many times. I've mourned many times, and I can tell you I had to find love within myself. I had to find that within my daily activities, within music, within art. I had to find something to fill my space. Even these podcasts, to me, it's a form of love. And the fact that we're talking about love in a podcast about that actually is expressing love, and even talking about love is a form of love as well. Because anybody who relates to this is actually going to be able to perpetuate that a little bit better, perhaps, or who knows. So I hope, anyways, that this is beneficial to people, and I believe it is.
Hmm. I feel a lot of younger adults and younger guys they have trouble expressing that kind of love when they cannot receive it from someone outside of them because they have trouble kind of loving themselves. Because I feel like there's a lot of suppression like of love in the whole community of just males, you know what I mean? Even females as well. Like it goes both ways. But
Yes, but more so in the male community, you're right. And
yeah.
especially in the heteronormative male community, especially in the alpha male community, because it's a toxic form. There's a lack of traditional indigenous rituals and diasporic rituals that are
Mm.
being placed there as rites of passage. The rites of passage these days are, getting drunk at a football game and going to a party after that instead of going on a vision quest or doing a sweat lodge or a sun dance or doing a rain dance or a ritual or, going and just simply maybe doing like a yoga retreat somewhere, like say like a silent meditation retreat, or going to Buddhist retreat, or there's so many different ways in which you can drastically shift your life and you can learn to repurpose and love yourself. But I feel like the biggest problem in the male community is, again, it's a toxic male standard, which women are naturally, I don't want to be too stereotypical, but many women in general statistically are more attuned with their emotions, with their spirituality, which is usually blamed on them. They say, oh, you're too emotional, you're too spiritual, you're too insightful, you're too irrational. But those are the most beautiful parts, the most supernatural parts of a human being.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting that energy of vulnerability is so, yeah, it's so held back, just like being vulnerable and opening yourself and just learning how to let go. What would you
Hmm.
say to somebody who is trying to let go to be more open to their emotions and just more open to themselves because the pain has been closing them off from that connection for so long?
I would say again, there's a good way to channel. The pain is usually either channeled into depression or anger. It's usually one side or the other. You either go low or you go higher up. You go lower in energy or you go higher up in energy. One way or another, there needs to be an outlet for that. Depression and anger can both be channeled. Say anger could be channeled in martial arts or in yoga or in Tai Chi or in Qigong or in Bushido or in ninjutsu or in capoeira, or there's a Venusian arts. It can be channeled creatively as well. I've channeled a lot of anger recently in some horrorcore hip hop against macho men in the industry that actually made me feel really satisfied about doing that. So the depression I also channel through my poetry usually. But let's say you're not a poet. First of all, we all are. At the end of the day, we're all using words on a daily basis. We're all expressing ourselves. Some maybe more in prose form than others, but some more poetically than others. But everybody has the capacity to piece words together poetically. You might think you don't, but you do. Not everybody can paint a beautiful image, but everybody can string words together.
Mm.
So that's one thing that you can use. Write it down on a piece of paper, write your emotions, keep a diary. Even write yourself a book, write a short story, write a poem, creative writing. Even do word games, word plays. Even sometimes video games can help to channel that emotion. I don't encourage people to stay a lot in front of a TV screen, but that could be very channeling, to play like an MMORPG video game, let's say, where you create yourself a mythical character that takes you out to another realm, like say Skyrim or Final Fantasy or Warcraft. Those kind of games back in the days, they actually helped me to escape to a realm where I didn't realize I was building my character in real life for future reference. I used to play a game when I was about 15 years old. There was an MMORPG game where I was a warrior monk that was a black magician called Anthony of Egypt, and
See.
I've turned into that. Now that's my real life character. But back then when I was a teenager, I was still doing real life crazy shit. Like, but when I was at home playing video games, and I became part of one of the best clans in the world in StarCraft. I was part of a Korean clan at StarCraft that was the best Korean clan known on the face of the planet, Clan Jin. It probably still
Yeah,
exists now. Now
that's
that
cool.
was almost impossible to join.
Mm.
So sometimes even those little things can actually have a huge impact. Even cooking food creatively, making yourself medicines, mulled wine, making some cider at home, experimenting with herbal remedies, even making some medicinal entheogenic medicines yourself, like creating, like the other day I made, it sounds like a small thing, but I made some ganja. I mixed some hash and some marijuana together with a little bit of wildflower honey, and it's legal where I am, by the way. So, and I mixed that with a little bit of coffee powder and a little bit of organic cocoa powder, And it was amazing. Suddenly I created this artistic medicinal shamanic substance, and it tasted delicious, and it made me feel
Mm.
really, really happy that I created that myself, even though Mother Nature grew it for me.
Hmm. Yeah, going back to what you were saying is kind of like how we're all the actors in our own movie, and we're also the directors and the cast and everything in our own movie. And
Exactly.
yeah, something that I've noticed in my personal growth is to not get too lost in the self and not to get too lost in who you think you are to a certain ingrained habitual way of thinking, but to just, yeah, expand your horizons and always keep your imagination active so you can always relight yourself and just always be open to change. Especially in your younger years, it's much easier when you are still building on your life experiences. But yeah, just to not get too lost in who you think that you are and just only limit yourself to that being and that persona. Um,
Very true.
yeah, honestly, like in existence like this, it's way too limiting to just be stuck in one kind of person for the rest of your life and only
I
be
agree.
stuck in that grip and in that yeah.
I think we should definitely be very shamanic. We are shapeshifters by nature. We shapeshift emotionally. We do it pathokinetically. Love shifts us in ways that are unfathomably complex. And yet sometimes it's as simple as somebody looking at you, even just a look, or like a fleeting smile, a hug, uh, a hand gesture, a
Hmm.
nod. That's enough to shift someone pathokinetically. It shifts the emotional state of the person. So be very aware of those extrasensory abilities. That's a very advanced extrasensory ability, pathokinesis, hagokinesis. Yeah.
Bro, a smile can change someone's life. Like just a smile.
Yes.
Like I remember like when I was in a very dark time in my life, I just was always looking down and I would never look up. I would never look at anybody or anything like that. And I was very closed off to the world. And ever since I started to awaken more to myself and just really embrace all parts of myself, I smile at a lot of people, just like, especially when I'm out traveling, I love to connect with other people, smile at other people because, even just meeting one person can impact the rest of your life. You'll be like,
Listen, good example of this. Tonight, I just met literally the reincarnation of a queen of Persia,
"Hmm,
who's very aware of who she is and very aware of who I am in a day that's shifted me entirely. It's been one of the best days in my life to have even like, a little bit of conversation with her, which to me has been fantastic. It's been something that I've barely ever experienced in my life.
hmm."
So I look forward to the rest of my existence even more so now in light of that.
Yeah, it's amazing how people can bring out different qualities of you that are so suppressed. And then they bring these qualities to the surface for you to be able to transmute and process them with love, understanding, compassion, all the divine qualities. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, it's really a gift to be able to share this coexistence with other beings that are just reflections of yourself. I stand strongly by the saying, all is self, because everything is
Hmm.
you, then everything externally, especially how you conceive the world and conceive other people, it's so connected. And a lot of those forces bring people together so that we can all rise above our limited subconscious view of the world and then transcend that with the power of love, like we were talking about.
Yes, yes, we're a giant network of interconnected bundles of energy, but individual bundles of energy that are all vibrating at different frequencies, some of which are compatible, others which aren't. But at the end of the day, it's like putting two magnets together. Some of them will repel each other no matter what because these people are completely contradictory. Others will attract.
Hmm.
That's magnetism. That's mesmeric properties. Mesmers, back in the days, mesmers knew about magnetism, and they used that to attract a familiar, and the familiar represented the wild side of their subconscious. So instead of having dogs walking on a leash or cats walking on a leash or something like that, they had familiars. They would follow you, and they were an extension of who you were. Those were mesmers. They were a form of magicians who knew about magnetism. and they were usually mesmerizing. They were very beautiful. Like, so the goddess I met tonight, she's a mesmer, and you can tell right away when you look at her.
Mm. I wanted to ask you how, like, when a youth comes into this world, it's a very mythological world and it's very magical, and the imagination is very active and very vivid. How does that get suppressed as we grow older? And how do we get kind of like dumbed down to a certain level of limited perception and limited imagination?
Yeah, in an anti-ableist sense, I should say, because it's like we're stupefied, I would say. Like, we're pushed into a way, you know, where we don't have full use of our abilities verbally, psychically, emotionally. We're denied that these abilities even exist. Me talking about pathokinesis, hagokinesis, telekinesis, those are all hypothetical applications, but we're applying them on a daily basis. So for youth coming into this world, it's a process of indoctrination in the system, which I know very well because I've taught at every level of the system, from elementary to high school to college to university to graduate university to postgraduate university. And I've done all those levels as well. So I see the levels of indoctrination and the different levels of education. And that happens at home as well, through the family, by parents actually brainwashing us into believing at some point that magic isn't real anymore, that the supernatural doesn't exist, that we've been lied to and allowed to have full creative and magical capacities and full imagination when we're youths. But then suddenly we're told, when we get to a rebellious phase as teenagers, that it was all just a lie. And then we rebel against the system. We rebel against our parents, generally speaking, or for the ones that are rare, that have good parents, good educators, in some cases, then they end up wanting to pursue in that system and be the ones that change the world, like those people that they met that brought them into that situation. I'm kind of halfway between both.
Hmm. Yeah, something that I want to bring in is, yeah, I had this thought where like you realize this if you don't sleep for a few days, where you see like if you don't go to sleep, then you see how your thoughts shape your reality and how you're just how the consciousness is just spinning, kind of like a hamster in a wheel, how it's just spinning, trying to create this continuous reality, but you never able or you're not able to take a step back and realize like, wow, this is like the world I'm creating. And you don't realize
Yeah,
because like you think that you go to sleep, but then you wake up the next day, and then that cycle continues. The cycle continues even more
it can
so.
continue, but if you have the right theta mode of sleep, you actually go into a time distortion that takes you to a different reality. And after waking up from your dream, after the amount of time distortion, you go in 3 to 5 seconds for a full dream, which you can imagine for a 12-hour sleep. You have, hundreds of dreams. So those hundreds of dreams are drastically shifting your subconscious and your conscious mind to the point where when you wake up in the morning, that's the definition of a quantum shift. But
Mm,
if we have too many drugs, too much, like you black out, you drank too much, you did drugs or something like that, you might not remember, and you have collective amnesia in a sense, or you have toxic or chemical amnesia that doesn't allow you to access those parts of your quantum leveling up in that sense in your dreams.
mm.
But once you start living your life in full lucid dream state and you wake up in the morning, you're a completely different person every morning.
Oh
But
yeah.
then you have a stable persona that somehow guides you through that, which usually is reflected partially through the way you perceive yourself in a mirror, through your clothes, through other people, through who you are from the inside, from the outside. So there's a stability there, but it's in constant flux.
Yeah, it's important to keep the dream alive and always
Yes,
live the dream. And yeah, that also brings me to the topic of the the quantum string theory and how like you're if you're able to connect with these certain webs of existence that are pre-laid out for you to connect and plug into, kind of like how the consciousness plugs into the stars, and this vessel is just a reflection of the planets and the universe that we're inhabited in. And yeah, if you're able to design a reality in your mind that is reflective of your inner state, then that's where like manifestation is birthed. If you're able to
exactly.
like pinpoint all of the attributes of that manifestation, and then eventually you morph into that.
Yes, because the higher your brain activity on a stabilized level, the more, if you're not overclocking and overheating, and even when you are, the more time distorts, your perception of time distorts for better or for worse, depending on the state that you're in. And the
Mm,
more you can create a wormhole or a portal, which is what whirling dervishes did back in the days when they were spinning around as Sufis and going into a mystical trance. They created a portal through their consciousness, through their chakras spinning together through this body, this etheric body. And then they created a portal that their soul would go into after they passed out in ecstasy on the floor. Their physical body would stay, the soul would go into the portal they opened up. I feel like music does very much the same for people.
mm,
That's the reason we call it a cipher.
mm. I feel the mass majority of people would listen to this conversation and think that we're crazy in a lot of ways.
That's
So
quite possible.
what would you
But I would
say?
just like to say I am a postdoctoral scholar in worldly literatures recontextualized. I am a postdoctoral scholar and a doctoral scholar as well in indigenous literatures, in decolonial theory, in translation studies, in intersectional studies. So I have a lot of colonial qualifications that are very decolonial at the same time. So we are having a serious conversation about the theoretical applications of what's already been declassified as a Black Ops document by the CIA, or Black Ops documents, I should say. So
Mm,
these are things that are discussed by scientists, that are discussed by people, but at very high ranking levels that have been hidden from the public for a long time. In
mm,
spiritual traditions, many of those are revealed.
yeah. Mm. Yeah, but they're revealed in riddles because yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
so encrypted within yourself. Like as I've been studying more into etymology and the actual meanings behind the words that we're speaking, when you connect with that part, it's like the language unlocks itself. And you really do not have to be doing anything. It's just all part of letting go and letting yourself solve it because yeah, like this vessel, like it's truly like intelligent beyond anything that our mind can even fathom and
Mm-hmm.
goes much more like way above knowing or even being able to conceive something. It's honestly, yeah, it's just it's crazy. It's amazing to be able to be part of this.
Oh, it is. The coming together of the subconscious, the conscience, and the superconscious is like it's a sight to behold. It's like when the chakras are all aligned, all three bodies on that level and all eight bodies etherically are in alignment and are balanced. We become extremely powerful supernatural beings.
Mm. Hmm. What stage of ascension or like yeah, the process of going through ascension is a very small amount in this majority of mass people on this planet. I would say it's
Depending
probably
on
like
where you're looking, depending
yeah,
on which countries, which are you. In the colonial world, you're right. In other
yeah,
worlds, a lot of people are extremely advanced. In other parts of the countries, like across the diaspora,
yeah.
people have a lot of awareness far beyond what we can even talk or fathom here.
Yeah, honestly, it's reversed to me. Like people think like the Western world is so advanced, but it's honestly just like a brainwashed society of indoctrinated zombies of just mind control
Mm-hmm.
and so many subliminal subconscious magic that keeps people bonded in like a time bubble. But then if you were to flip it
Couldn't
the
have
other
said it
way
better.
and see like how there's beings out there that are living a completely different life, but they're oh they're on a whole nother world, bro. There's like a world within a world, worlds within worlds that you unlock through
Yes.
your layers of perception.
And I want to give thanks to the diaspora, to the women out there who taught me what I know, to the revolutionaries, to the goddesses, to the oracles, to the youths of the future, to nature, to her denizens, to the insects, to the plants, to all the sentient beings that allowed me to know what I know now. Because anytime I had secrets to figure out, to reveal, Mother Nature would give me the answers. People would appear in my life. I prayed to the goddess would appear in my life. I prayed for a goddess to appear in my life, she appears. I wondered in my life, what about Ruth and Judith and Esther? What about these apocryphal prophetesses of the Old Testament? When will I ever meet one? Boom, they appear.
Hmm.
So, anytime I pray for a being to appear in my life in a supernatural sense without knowing it, I'm inviting that force to come in and meet with me.
Yeah, it's interesting how you say those names because like when you it's part of your namesake and like you inherit the vibration of that name. And then in a way that's like your card that you play in the game, the card of like the game of life.
the tarot. It's like a tarot deck. You're
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
summoning, the words become like cards. It's a very good point. You're summoning an archetype of a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And summoners are very real. Like there's many people summoning spirits, many people summoning people. You can summon a certain person. There's many artists that you can summon for a certain sum of money. So you sum on them and you summon them.
Hmm. Wow. Okay, honestly, I feel like that's a great place to leave off this podcast. That was pretty filled. That was very informative in a lot of different ways. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, bro.
Yo, thank you.
I
Thank
bless
you.
the
And I
space.
would say to everyone out there listening, just remember love, evolution, and revolution. Those are the three words you need to think about always fitting together. Because if you don't have revolutionary love, you're not really having love. If you don't have evolutionary love, it's not really love. And if it's not unconditional and intersectional, why bother? Don't settle for less. Find the true love.
Don't settle for less. Exactly. Perfect. Thank you, brother. I bless the
Much
space.
love.
Peace.
Peace.